It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Divas That Care. My name is Candace Gish. You know what? It's that time of the month again. Brianna Kuhn is back with us, and she's going to be sharing so many great tips and tools with all of you. So if this is your very first time tuning into the Divas That Care, a huge welcome to you. The Divas That Care is now its 11th season, and we are listened to in over 30 countries around the world. You know what? We have a group of amazing women that have shows on the network. So make sure that you check them out because you don't want to miss them. As I said, Brianna's back, and I'm so excited to be chatting with her today. So Brianna, welcome back to the Divas.
Thank you so much. It's definitely the highlight of my month coming and talking with you on the show.
Oh, my gosh. I am so excited. I always get excited when you're coming back on because I'm like, okay, what am I going to incorporate into my business today? But before we kind of get into that, would you mind introducing yourself to our new listeners?
Of course. So as you said, my name is Brianna, and I own my own business, and it's called Limitless Impact Virtual Management. And I am a virtual business consultant and social media strategist. So I help all sizes of businesses in any industry with the day-to-day aspects of their work life to provide them with my expertise as well as my team's expertise to make their life a little bit easier and allow them to focus on what's important and why they got into business in the first place.
And that's why I love having you on. What a great concept. You know, we all need that. And things have changed so much in the last couple of years where we are almost requiring a person like yourself to assist us in transitioning into this really online atmosphere.
Oh, 100%. You know, like I have entrepreneurs of all walks of life, really. And there's no shame in coming and asking for help from someone like myself to help you improve your business. You know, like that's one of the things as being an entrepreneur is knowing where your limitations are and when to, you know, ask someone who is an expert in an area to take over the task for you.
Exactly. All right. Well, today's program, I'm excited. We're going to be talking about imposter syndrome. So let's chat a little bit about that.
Yeah, you know, just based off what I just said, you know, it's actually a pretty nice segue into what I wanted to talk about today. And, you know, this is something that I find a lot of people talk about online. And it used to be something that was kind of one of those things where it was a little bit taboo to talk about in a sense because there was a lot of shame around it. And as, you know, the more that social media has, you know, retargeted itself to being more authentic, the more people who actually talk about this now. And, you know, this is something that I suffer with. It comes in waves. But the actual definition of imposter syndrome is, there's a couple ways to do it, but essentially it's a feeling or a mindset of a successful individual entrepreneur where he or she expresses doubt. They feel, you know, like they're not worthy of their success, and they have a lot of anxiety surrounding their area of expertise. And one of their biggest fear is being exposed as a fraud. So I've been in business since December of 2019, and, you know, especially going through the pandemic, one of the most common questions that I would get from people who were interested in working with me is like, well, what makes you an expert with this? And, you know, that's a typical question that business owners will get because their potential customers and clients they're honestly just asking you that question out of like curiosity for the most part and looking out for themselves and their business. But for an entrepreneur who, is sliding into that mindset of imposter syndrome and then they get hit with that question, it can just full on throw them into the deep end of it.
And I can really see that, because that's what I think everybody goes through that. And you were mentioning it is something that a lot of people don't talk about.
Yeah. And, I think in the last little while, even, since I've been out of high school, which is now, I graduated 2013, so I'm still pretty young, but, people are becoming more comfortable with the conversation around mental health. And imposter syndrome is actually considered a mental health issue, because it is a mindset or an anxiety around a certain situation or experience that you're going through. And it can come in a lot of ways. It can be as an entrepreneur. It can be as, you're just successful in your career as an employee. Like, there's so many different aspects, professional athletes, celebrities, like they all experience this, and they've all, in their own way have talked about it in the sense of like, oh, I was just lucky, I was right place, right time sort of thing. And when people usually use those lines, you can typically tell that they have that mindset from time to time and they suffer from imposter syndrome.
So how does a person get over that?
So, speaking from personal experience, it's definitely something that it comes in waves. And what I have found to help myself with it is to allow to be very kind to myself. And when I am having those moments like that, I like to look back at the goals that I have achieved in my business to remind myself that I am worthy of that success, that I worked hard for that success. And it gives you a little bit of peace in a way to kind of ease that anxiety of, oh my God, like I'm a fraud. But if you look back at those goals and be like, no, I'm not, because I actually achieved those things. And I'm not just saying that I did. One of the biggest things is, as an entrepreneur, though, a lot of us are independent, and we don't necessarily have, an assistant or, like a co-founder or a partner in the business that we can lean on when we're having moments like that. So sometimes it can be really hard when you're on your own in your business because you have no one to talk to about it. And that's one of the things that I work with a lot of my clients who are independent in their business, and, they hire me for, occasional work and stuff like that. I'm the kind of person, to check in on them and make sure that they're doing okay. Mm-hmm. And, if there's certain things in their business emotionally, task-wise, that they're struggling with, I make it a safe place that they can come and talk to me about it.
And that's perfect, because that's what I was going to ask you. How do you work with somebody that is going through a situation like that? Because, it does, as you were mentioning, it comes in waves, it goes up and down, and, you have a really successful time, and it's like, and then all of a sudden you hit this nosedive, and you're like, oh my goodness, what do I do next? So you're helping people work through these ups and downs.
Yeah, and, I've been very open about my mental health journey, and it's been a journey the last few years. And the more that I've learned about mental health and where I sit with mental health, I've learned a lot about myself. And I've learned a lot about how people like me think. And, I'm very open about it. I have, anxiety as well as I have ADHD. And I was a late diagnosed ADHD. It was 2 years ago now. And, you know, I look at myself very differently. And my outlook on life and everyday experiences are different from the average person. And I'm very grateful, honestly, for it, because I'm able to see the world in a different light. And I feel like that gives me not necessarily an advantage, but a different perspective that I'm able to share with people who are going through their own mental health journey, and, you know, explaining to them that when you're experiencing imposter syndrome, it's okay. And you can lean into that and you can explore why you're feeling that way. But then you're able to look at it from a different point of view and actually appreciate why you're having imposter syndrome, because that usually means that you're very successful.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I like how you're talking about mental health, because as a woman entrepreneur, and I have been for, 25 plus years, it's not something that a lot of people used to talk about. It's definitely something that we talk about a lot more now. But being an entrepreneur, you don't want to acknowledge that, because you don't want that stigma. You don't want people thinking of you in a certain way. And I always said, mental health is such a strong thing. We have to acknowledge it, and we need to work towards it, because it's not just for ourselves, but it's for the people around us also.
Oh, 100%. And, I've done a lot of research about, ADHD to be specific. And there is a lot of entrepreneurs that have ADHD. And one of the reasons is because when people typically think about that, it's, the hyperactive part of it where, you can't sit still, or you're kind of bouncing off the walls and you talk really fast and all of those kind of things. But there's different parts of it. And honestly, the way that I look at it is it's kind of my superpower in a way, because I'm able to multitask very well. I'm extremely creative, and I'm thinking of so many different ideas of how to improve my business, my clients' businesses, and come up with these ideas that maybe the average person wouldn't be able to necessarily think of right away. And I don't sit in it or feel ashamed or embarrassed about it, because there's really nothing to be embarrassed about. And it's the same thing with imposter syndrome. It's okay to feel like that sometimes. It's learning not to sit in it for too long, and to be able to look in the mirror and say, the reason why I'm experiencing imposter syndrome right now is because I'm on my right path and I am doing the work that I love, and I'm scared that someone's going to take it away because I'm so successful.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
So tell me, you've been quite busy. There's a lot of stuff going on in your life right now. We're going into the new year. What are you doing with your business? How are you supporting individuals out there? And what kind of a clientele base are you looking for?
So, as I said, I started my business in December of 2019, and the pandemic was a whirlwind. And I know we're not quite out of it yet, but a lot of businesses have recognized that it's extremely important to have a digital presence, because anything in the world can happen at this point. And when you have a digital presence, you're able to reach a whole different demographic and a whole new audience that would be interested in your business. And those are the kind of people that I want to work with. The people who appreciate why it's important to have a digital presence, don't necessarily know how to get that, or they're too busy to maintain it. And, that being said, I do work with businesses on non-digital stuff, like administrative support and stuff like that. But I love working with business owners that are wanting to kind of reach that next level. And it could be any size of business, it could be a startup, and they're looking to, achieve their first couple sales. Or it could be a business who's making that jump from just being an independent entrepreneur to bringing on a full-time employee, and they need someone to help facilitate that for them. There's so many different kinds of people that I love working with. And I don't limit the industry or, really anything. I love having a conversation with people, and I'll be honest and say, yeah, definitely, this is something I can totally help you with. Or I'll be like, you know what, this might be a little bit out of my realm. Let me find you someone who can. And, that's what I love about my job, is that every day is different.
I love it. And you know what I like about you, Brianna, is that you are always keeping up with the trends, things that are going on in the industry. You're always wanting to try new things and to see what works, what doesn't work. And I think it really helps your clients.
Yeah, I know with social media and just online in general, it's ever changing, and there's always, a new component of an algorithm or, a new social media strategy where it's, like a TikTok trend or whatever, right? There's always something new, and it can be really hard to stay on top of that when you're a business owner because you're focused on selling your product or doing your service. But with me, staying on top of those things, that is my business, right? And so I make a point of understanding those platforms and the algorithms and, staying on top of the trends so you don't have to. And you don't necessarily have to understand how to do them or work with them. You have me to do that for you. And then you don't have to worry about falling behind.
I love it. All right. So, Brianna, what types of tips and tools can you leave our listeners today?
Well, coming into the holiday season, something that I always like to remind my clients is it's okay to spend the holidays with your family and your friends and turn your phone off, put that email signature on saying that you are away for the holidays, you're taking a break to appreciate time with your friends and family. It is a perfect time to do that if you don't typically do that other points in the year, because people understand it's, the holiday season, and it is a time to spend it with your friends and family and appreciate those moments. So be kind to yourself, take the time to unwind and appreciate how far you've come. And I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you so much. And Brianna, what is your website or what's your social media links so our listeners can get a hold of you?
Of course. So my website is limitlessimpact.ca. I am on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and my handle is @limitlessimpact. So if you guys have questions or you want to learn how to work with me, send me a DM, fill out my contact form on my website, and I'll get in touch with you as soon as possible.
Perfect. And for all of our listeners, Brianna has quite a few shows on the Divas That Care. She is our amazing monthly guest. So make sure that you go and check out those recorded podcasts because they are absolutely fantastic, and there's a lot of tips and tools in them. So, Brianna, thank you so much again for being my guest today. I'm looking forward to talking with you in the new year.
You as well, and happy holidays and happy new year to you all.
Thank you, and happy holidays to you. And to all of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. We are so excited that you checked out Brianna's call today. She, as I said, she's got such amazing podcasts out there, so I want you to check them out. Lots of tips, lots of tools, and we're always excited when she comes back on our program. All right, everybody, make sure that you do something kind today, and until next time.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, And of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.